Hey crafty cuties, welcome back to Paper Terrace. If you're new, I'm Jessica, and in today's video we are going to be making handmade paper. So I have to admit, this is my first time making handmade paper. It's going to be quite the experiment, but we're doing it together. I'm going to try to go slow and make sure to show all of the steps, because in the last few videos, a few of you mentioned that you would like to see like all of the details, so it's going to be quite longer, but we're going to leave that in today. I'm using mostly Dollar Tree items, but some things are going to be what I already have at my house, or you know, something like a tool that I already have. Let's go over all of the supplies that I have here. You're gonna need 2 Dollar Tree frames. Mine are 5 by 7 because I'm planning to use my handmade paper for tags and journaling cards. So you'll need 2 of the same size frames. You're gonna need lots of paper scraps, and I'm actually using mostly book pages from my Dollar Tree book and other papers that I have from Dollar Tree. Feel free to just reuse and recycle paper that you already have, like a tablet of paper would be great. It's fine if you have writing on it. So I already started tearing that up. I'll go over how much you need in a bit here. You'll need like a scoop or a ladle. You're going to need some sponges, or I have these absorbent pads that just are from my kitchen. You'll need like some towels or fabric. I have both of those here. This is just a fabric that I thought I could lay the paper on to dry. You are going to need some type of screen. You could use pantyhose, you can use muslin fabric, however I heard that might be a little bit trickier but would work. You could use netting, like if you have, Dollar Tree has the tote bags that have like the netted material, but I did happen to have leftover what do you call this, screen from a screen door that my mom gave me, so I didn't purchase it. So again, I know that's not from the Dollar Tree, but you can vary this and just use like what you have. And then for tools, I'm going to use a staple gun. You'll want like a bowl, and you'll want either a blender. You could use a handheld blender, or you can do this without a blender, and I'll get into how to do that. But you'll want to start soaking your paper as soon as you can. If you want to do the no blender method, you'll definitely want to soak your paper probably for almost 2 days. This has been going for almost 2 days. I have about 15 pages or so, 15 to 20 tore up into the smallest pieces that you can, and I'm noticing the scrapbook paper that's a little bit thicker isn't really disintegrating so well. So I think that the thinner the better if you're not going to use a blender, but if you have an old blender you can use, I think that's gonna work even better. So like I said, this was about 15 to 20 pages cut up, and then you can see I didn't measure anything, but it's probably like 5 cups of water. And then you'll also need some kind of a bigger pan or tub. You really could use something like this, but I have this big Rubbermaid tub that I'm going to use. So you can see up here, it's going to, I think, just make the process a little bit easier, and I had it in my garage. And then if you want to add anything like flower petals or leaves or anything like that, ink, paint, you can experiment with that as well. Like I said, the first step, you're going to want to go ahead and start soaking your paper. Tear it up into the smallest pieces that you can. I'm going to blend mine up with you guys, but we want to start making our deckle, and I probably won't be using the most professional terms with paper making because this is just brand new to me and I don't even know what I'm doing. But I do know you're going to go ahead and remove the glass and all of the papers. You just want the frame. So I'm going to do that with both, and I think that you could probably get away with just using 1 frame. All of the tutorials I've seen use 2, so that's what I am going to do. So you'll want to take your netting, and we want to cut, you just need 1 piece, and you'll want to cut it just a little bit bigger than your frame. And let's see, so I think I'm going to wrap it around this way because it's going to be easier to use my staple gun into this material, that I think, than this side. Okay, so you're going to want to wrap this around really tight, and I'm going to basically pull it as tight as I can, and I'm going to kind of fold this over if that makes sense. I'll bring you guys in a little bit more. So if you can see, I pulled that around and then I just folded it so that I didn't have any excess netting hanging over. I could trim it as well, but I think that this will help give a tighter pull to do it that way. Then you're gonna take your staple gun and you're gonna hold this really carefully down and just put a few staples down into the frame. Okay, so then I'm going to turn it around and I'll do the same over here. So I will obviously need to trim some of this. Honestly, I was going to experiment and use hot glue. It might not last, you know, over time. I don't think it's probably going to last for super long, but I do think that hot glue would work for just, you know, a few times at least. So if you're in a pinch, just use what you can. Okay, and I'll definitely trim this a bit here, just so I don't have too much excess. So again, I'm gonna pull it over and just fold that excess over. Here's a little more up close look. Some of my staples really didn't go in too well, but I think it's gonna be fine. And there is some give to this, but it was as tight as I could get it, so we're gonna make it work. I think that the flatter your frame is on the outside, the better it's going to work, because that will ensure that it can be more tight. But we're good to go, and we're going to be using this second frame right here when we dip it into the water. This is going to kind of like frame where the paper can go so that we have a nice shape on the outside, I guess. And then if you have duct tape, you can go ahead and tape around the edges here. And again, I think that's just to kind of cover the staples and to kind of keep that off limits for the pulp to go. I don't have duct tape, so I'm actually gonna use some packaging tape, which I don't know that's going to work very well, but again, I'm just showing you that I'm just using what I can and what I have. So I'm just gonna trim this down and just kind of put some tape over all of the edges here. So you can see I have the tape just going over the edge where you have all your staples, and just wrap it around the sides. Duct tape would definitely be better than this. Time to work on the paper. Again, hopefully you had yours soaking, because you can see this is quite the pulpiness here that we want. So what I did a couple times while this was soaking over the last 2 days, or day and a half I guess, was I would take my mashed potato masher, and again, this is if you don't have a blender, but even if you have one of those, I think immersion blenders or hand blender, you can use that for this, although I would definitely make sure that you're not using it on food as well. But you really want this to get nice and blended up. But let me show you how we got to this point. So again, even though I kind of explained it, I want to show you that basically I'm just taking pieces of the book pages and tearing them up super small. Now, for the method that you're not using a blender on, you're just going to let it soak overnight. I was doing the pieces like teeny tiny. I'm going to show you so that you can actually see, get a visualization here. I mean, I'm talking smaller than that even. I spent way too long. You could use your paper trimmer or anything like that. Since I'm going to use the blender now for this method, you don't need to, it depends on your blender, but you probably don't need your pieces to be too small. But I am tearing them down quite a bit. And we can even start soaking this in water, so I'll grab some water for that. So I just filled it with enough water to really just to let it start soaking. But I'll continue tearing some pages apart. And I'll probably do like 15. So now we're gonna go ahead and take this over to the blender and blend it up. I'm just using an old blender that I have, and I probably added way too much paper to this, but you'll want like 1 part paper to maybe 3 parts water, something like that. You want more water than paper. And then go ahead and just turn your blender on. And if you notice that it's kind of slowing down, having a hard time, just add more water. So for the consistency, if it's like this, mine's kind of, I guess, like oatmeal, you would say, you're gonna wanna add a lot more water to this, but mine's blended pretty good into the pulp now. So I'm gonna just put it all in a pan just to set aside. You don't wanna put it into your big water tub yet. Just put this to the side. We have our big tub. Sorry about the glare. I have to have the lights on though. So we have our pulp, and I'm gonna go ahead and just try adding like 3 scoops of this, and this is 1/3 cup. So let's see. We'll start by adding, let's see, that's 1 cup. It looks like I'm probably gonna need more. So this is gonna be about 2 cups, but remember right now I have a huge amount of water. If I can find how many quarts this is to help you out, I will go ahead and put that down below. But you want very little pulp to water ratio. So now go ahead and just kind of mix this up. We want the water to be cloudy, and I see a few pieces of paper that are a little bit bigger than the rest floating around, and I'll probably, I might grab those out. So we want to make the water cloudy, and you want to try to make this as even as possible. So just take a few minutes to really mix it up. It's not really going to look like pulp now. It's going to look more like cloudy water. Okay, now you're going to take your screen here, and so I have the flat screen on facing up, and then I'm going to take my frame and put the 2 tops together, if that makes sense. Then we're going to take this and we're going to kind of swoop it in. You'll see. And I don't think I have enough pulp in here. That would be a really thin paper. We could try that, but that'll be kind of your trial, is to see how thick it is. That might be okay, but I think I need a little bit more pulp. So let's just add a little bit more. Try to wash that off best we can. And then I'll just add like 2 more spoonfuls. So then altogether I have about 3 cups. So maybe 3 of these. Sorry. Let's try that. And it might not have been too thin, but it just didn't look quite right. Okay, let's try it again. Okay, you want to try to let the water slowly drain out so that it can be as even as possible. And I definitely see a few pieces of paper in here that maybe didn't get too blended. But that's okay. We'll just keep them in there for now. I can take it out. So just kind of take your time to get that, let that excess water drain out. Then we're gonna take this over to our area. I guess I forgot to say that I have a towel, or I have some fabric laid out. So we're gonna bring it over here. So I have my fabric actually just laying over like a cookie sheet. So we're gonna, let's see, I think we can take that off now. I'm just kind of guessing. Set that to the side. You can see that it's not a perfect shape on the outside, so you can kind of clean it up if you want by just kind of going like that. Okay, so lots of excess water is coming off, and so I'm going to take a paper towel. You want to try to get rid of as much excess water as you can. And then I'm going to take this and quickly just flip it over. Okay, now I'm going to take my paper towel to start with to try and get up as much excess water as you want. So now would be a good time to grab a bowl just to have nearby. If you have a sink nearby, that's even better. And so you can continue using a paper towel if that's what you want, but now would be a good time to use your sponge. And again, you're just gonna keep getting up as much you want, like to get all of the excess water. And I'm doing it through the screen so that we're not messing with the shape yet. We're really kind of flattening that down. And I keep getting more and more. And I think that these kind of things will work great. This is like a, I think it's microfiber. And actually the Dollar Tree has microfiber cloths. I've definitely seen them there. So it's similar to this. And this is like just super water absorbent. So this would be a great thing to get from the Dollar Tree if you can. And I'm pressing pretty hard here to try to get all of that water because it's just gonna dry quicker. Now I picked a non-sunny day to do this on, but I was planning to do it on a sunny day because it seems like these dry way better outside in the sun. I like the idea of using the paper towel, but this is definitely wasteful. But at least to get up most of that now. So I'm just gonna, now once I feel like I have enough of the water out, we're going to very slowly peel this off so that you just want the paper to be stuck down. And so I'm just gonna kind of, I'll try to get a different angle for you. So now, like I said, we're gonna try to peel this up, and you might have to kind of work with it quite a bit because it is gonna probably try to stick to the screen. I can see that parts of it are trying to come up with the screen, but okay, there we go. So if you saw that kind of released from there, there's a few spots that are sticking, and you just kind of continue pushing it through on the opposite side. Okay, got it. So the whole thing came off. Now this one, like I said, it's very thin, so I'm really gonna have to wait for that to dry all the way on this towel or fabric before I'll be able to pick it up. But we have our first paper. So I hope that you can see I have the first paper there drying, and if you can see, there's a piece of a book page right here that didn't get blended up, but I kind of like that. So I think this is maybe a little too thin. Let's go ahead and add more pulp and do that again. I'm gonna add maybe 2 more cups of this. And after we do this one, we can experiment with adding some paint to make colored paper. Okay, I just feel like that was just way too thin, but maybe it's gonna be fine. We just won't really know until it dries. So I'm gonna lay mine out to dry probably overnight, but I have heard some people using a iron, and maybe we can experiment and try that. I'll just have to see if I have enough time to do that. But we're gonna take our screen again. Once again, just go like this. And just kind of swoop it. Okay, I can tell this definitely seems thicker, so just gotta play around with it at first to get the right consistency. So I'm just gonna let as much of this drain as I can. If you want more of a perfect, outline shape, again, you can clean that up, or you can just be more careful than I am. But I'm fine with that because I'm going to cut these into tags anyway, so. For this one, I actually laid a couple paper towels on top of my fabric. I just kind of want to see what works best, but. Okay, so again, let's see how much room I have here. I'm gonna take this and like quickly flip it over right onto that paper towel and just start soaking up the water again. You can see it almost feels like you're not going to get any water but you can see that you do. So just do this again until you sop up as much water as you can. And I'm just kind of using a variety of things to do that with. So now I'm going to go ahead. The reason I'm thinking the paper towel might not be so good is because I think it might stick to the paper towel, but at the same time I think it might be good because it's easier to just pull this and kind of pull it away from the screen, but you'll want to do that slowly and carefully. Okay, honestly this is looking better than what I thought. Now this is pretty wet, so maybe it's better to do that, and I wonder if I flip this over now if it would easily come off onto the fabric, because I am thinking that it might stick a bit too much. So I hope you can see this. I can actually peel this off of the paper towel more than you would think you could. Just gotta be really careful not to rip it. So I'm keeping this in the video so you can see how slow I'm actually going to try this. So I don't know, I guess I kind of like the paper towel underneath, but also it is quite a bit more wasteful, so maybe the fabric's just fine by itself. Okay, let's try and add some things to our paper now, because I feel like I got it down all right. Start by just using some red paint. This is from the Dollar Tree. And honestly, I'm just going to, first of all, put it in here. I think you need more paint than you would think you do. I'm gonna add some white paint also. So I'm gonna add some white, just so it's more like a pink, but you don't want it too light of a color, or you want to have enough paint, I think, to actually color. I'm just using my hands here. Okay. Go ahead and just add the color. And from what I've seen, you want to have the color, I guess, darker than what you even think you would need it to be in order to actually show up on the paper. So I probably could just add straight red, but we'll start with that. I'm gonna add a little bit more pulp to this now. Okay, now let's go for a dive. I added quite a bit more pulp this time than I had been. So we'll just see how that works. Get all the excess water. If you're having trouble getting it released from your screen or hose, netting, whatever you used, I definitely think that means that you still need to absorb some of the water, and I'm finding that a paper towel honestly does do a good job at getting those last bits of water out. Just barely lifting it from the fabric and kind of tapping it until you actually, it just releases right from the screen. Okay, awesome. So I think you can tell a difference. This is the colored one. It's not super colored. And then this is the plain. And honestly, it's just super light, but I think that's a nice effect. Let's try adding some plant matter. I'm gonna add some leaves and plants here. Obviously, feel free to go grab this, you know, from your own yard to experiment. You'll want to dry it out, I think, for the best effect. And to be 100 with you guys, I got these off of Amazon, pressed. It was like a pack of pressed leaves and flowers. So that's what I'm going to use right now, just because it's going to work for me. I did not think ahead to dry some leaves, but you don't have to do that. And I'm just kind of guessing here because I have a big tub and a lot of this is going to get kind of just lost in there. But we're going to start off with some greenery. And then I also grabbed a flower from my yard, and I think I'll just take some of the petals just to see, and just take some little pieces. We'll see if any of it ends up in the paper or not. And from what I've also learned from watching videos, if you're not using a substance called sizing, you might not have a good chance of this actually lasting in your paper long term. Sizing is something that adds a lot of benefits, I guess, to your paper making, but since this is my first time, I just wanted to try without, and it's something that I don't think you definitely cannot get at the Dollar Tree. Let's go ahead and scoop this up now. I will say that this tape I added, it's really kind of being annoying because it's really making everything, it's making the water kind of hang out in there. Okay, so I didn't get a ton of greenery, but from what I've heard, you really can go ahead and just take some of the plant matter, leaves, whatever you're using, and just place them in. So that's what I'm gonna do. See, like the water is kind of getting lodged into where I taped it, so if I could do something over again, I probably just wouldn't add tape unless I had duct tape, but even then I don't really think it's doing much other than kind of protecting me from getting hurt by the staples. Okay, I'm just going to take a couple more pieces, and those might not stay for long, but that's okay. Okay, we'll just do the same thing, flip this one over. In case this turns out cool, oh, I thought I would record this too. I added some of the blue paint and actually just kept it kind of swirled. I don't think it's going to end up swirled, but let's just see if that does anything. Okay, so again, I think that paint ended up kind of chunky. I'm going to flip this over now, and I think we'll go ahead and try drying one of them with the clothing iron just to see how it turns out, since it's not a sunny day and I want to be able to show you guys a final product today. We will be using these in an upcoming video, making tags and journaling cards, so be on the lookout for that as well. I'll go ahead and clean up the area and grab my iron. Okay, so remember, it's probably going to be best to let these dry outside in the sunshine if you can, but we're going to see how this works. I'm going to take like a tea towel, I guess, and place it over one of these here. I have my iron on low, and we're just going to carefully go over just a few times. Just in the time of me filming this video, honestly, most of these papers are like dry enough for me to pick up. They don't fall apart or anything, and I was nervous about that, but it shouldn't take too much heat to dry these. Just a little bit more. It's pretty dry. Okay guys, so I've probably been doing this for about 4 minutes now. Just doing it for a few seconds, taking it off. I just don't want it to get too hot, so I just wanted to let you know. Another way you could dry these is in the oven, but again, I think we're gonna have the best luck putting them outside. And hey, the sunshine's coming out, so I'm gonna finish drying this one just to give you a good look at this now, but I'll dry the others outside in the sun. Let's see here. I think it's pretty close. It's still like a little damp, but actually, so I think this was the first or second one I did, and it is thin. But I've heard of a lot of people having trouble at getting the paper thin enough. So I'm actually really happy with this, and it will be really great for collaging and tags. So yay, there's our first piece of paper.